Good morning. I'm Avi West. I am the Director of Educational Resources at the Partnership for Jewish Life and Learning, what we've been calling PJLL. So I've been around also for a while, about 35 years, and have worked with most of the schools, nursery, elementary, high schools in the area, along with adult education. And you can get me at the partnership, awest at pjll.org. Rodef folks know how to get in touch with me. So before I go further, I want to note that today is Veterans Day. If there are veterans in the audience, I want to thank you for your service. It is something that makes all of this possible, especially the freedoms we enjoy in this country. My father, a proud to be Jewish kind of guy, is 91 years old, happens to be the president of his shul in West Palm Beach, and today, at this very moment, is in some park with his hat and his friends from the Jewish War Veterans group. And it fills me with pride, and it is a very big part of his identity and how he sees the world. And in that sentence that I just said, thank you for your service, there are two reasons that I bring it up this morning. Thank you. The recognition of good, hakarat hatov, is a big Jewish value. And having holidays are great times to remember to say thank you to people, things, entities that you forget, you take for granted. Service, avodah, is one of the three pillars of Jewish life. Torah, learning, avodah, service, and gemilut chasadim, deeds of loving kindness. So it's important to frame it that way. Okay, time out. What did I just do? This was a programmed beginning, right? And a sort of, not just off the cuff. Yep.
Taught a lesson.
Taught a lesson. What kind of lesson? Is it just a Jewish lesson?
No.
Right? Universal and particular. What I tried to do was model, for the moment, the ability to take our multiple identities and show that if you don't silo them, if you don't artificially write yourself in a corner, they can be merged. And I do this for a specific reason. One of the main things I'm speaking about, but all of us are really seen as the overall goal, is positive Jewish identity. And it was mentioned here. If someone owns their identity and understands it and all its components and see it as positive, they will have the inner strength and the abilities and the resilience to deal with certain things as well. Does that help? Yes. Noah. Okay. So, yeah, that's if it works. Also, it's good. That's fine. It's green. Hello? Hello? That's fine. It was on? Oh, very good. So, one of the things that we understand is that all of us have multiple identities. For instance, how many of you are children? Yes. And I don't mean that you are loving your inner child, right? You are blessed with parents, you have that role, you are children. How many of you are parents? Yeah. How many of you have titles to the work you do, let's say, outside the home? Yeah. How many of you are on sports teams? Clubs, hobbies, volunteer groups? Yeah. Each one of those are components to your identity. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is modern life. That is taking advantage of the freedoms of this country, this community, modern times. And normally, we do a pretty good job juggling. When do we get into problems, stress, anxiety? It's when we either artificially have to prioritize or the juggling doesn't work. That is when stress happens. So Judaism has two stories that we tell that may point us in the direction which would lead to positive Jewish identity within all the identities. The first is what we can call the Jewish Pledge of Allegiance, which is the Shema. Shema Yisrael. Pay attention, you Israelites, and the word Yisrael means the people who wrestle with big things. Pay attention, you people who wrestle with these big ideas. Adonai Eloheinu, this Lord that we call our God, that Adonai is Echad. That there's a oneness that we strive to look for. That oneness leads to healthy identities, the merging of all the things. So oneness is good. In fact, right, we'll talk when Rabbi Schwartzman talks about the high holidays. What do we call one of those days? The Day of Atonement. What's atonement? At-one-ment. The ability to merge things carefully, right, with some edges perhaps, but that it all can fit together. The second story is the Jewish story of creation. The Jewish story of creation says in Genesis that first there was chaos, and our understanding of creation is taking order out of chaos. What's order out of chaos? Water. The earth was unformed and void, and water was here and there and everywhere. And then there was a firmament, and water had its boundaries. Distinctiveness, boundaries, that's the Jewish story. All of these two themes can be used when we're talking about our identities. We are trying to move towards a oneness, not exclusive oneness, a cooperative oneness where all the things that we want for ourselves can exist together. Oneness means negotiating, oneness means discussing, alternating, right? Finding compromises. You hear Washington, right? But that is the name of the game, and it is tough. So for our purposes today, we're going to look at some of the conflicts a bit between the particular and the universal, the ethnic, religious, the Jewish, and 21st century Americans in Washington, D.C., because that's really the anchor identity. One thing I would not take issue with, Andrew, but I think what I find is that many of our kids are blindsided by some of the bullying and other issues because they unlike other generations, perhaps don't see themselves as different, ostensibly, right? Or they're not conscious of even having religious holidays. They may be different holidays, but that doesn't make them different because everybody has the holidays. And when something hits them, specifically as Jews, it's confusing. They don't know where it comes from, and that's part of the overall issue. So we as parents and teachers are trying to help our families learn strategies that bring some unity to their variety of personal identities. And while we want to anchor their identity in the particular, which is Hamish, which is the home, the family, deep roots in history perhaps, or choosing to be a part of the people as Jews by choice have done, that is an important anchor. For instance, look at this place this morning. This is a mall. It happens to be a Jewish ethnic mall. But it's a mall where you see all sorts of goods and services. By the way, I'm not in competition with the gift shop. This is just my tchotchke table for props. But you see people of different ages, intergenerational activities, all sorts of things. So your ethnic, religious, particular identity could be a great source of strength, but it needs to be seen as value added to the general identity as well, and not have them separate. So let's start with some questions for you. What is it, and this is not rhetorical, what is it about our particular identity that we value and care to transmit to the next generation? What is it about that particular identity that we're enthused with or that's worth being assertive to transmit. Yep.
The idea of preparing the world, that service is a very strong part of the tradition.
Great. The one aspect is we have a mission-driven life. Don't let the self-help book steal that phrase, or any other group. It's good for many groups to have a mission-driven life. The two words mostly that we've used are tikkun olam. We are partners with God in creation, and the way you articulate that is through service, is through activity for humanity, but also from your family to community and outward. That's a big deal. That's an ethic to stand up for. Anything else? Yep.
I always tell my children how when they're talking about Christmas at school, or sometimes they're having some issues related to that, and they might feel like they're left out, and I tell them how wonderful Judaism is. It's such amazing that we go by the seasons, and Judaism is a religion of fun. It's so wonderful, and I always tell them how wonderful it is that we have Sukkot, we have all our holidays are so much fun and so beautiful. So I try to emphasize the happiness and beauty of our holidays.
Great. So if we do not have to put our eggs in one basket, just the December dilemma, we indeed can talk about our holiday cycle as a cycle of remembering important ideas attached to good seasons which stimulate those ideas. For instance, harvests, those are important, and that those holidays have a serious aspect and a fun aspect. They're pretty well developed and sophisticated. They're not just little cut and paste games that we used to play in early childhood. They are now motivations for thinking big thoughts about ideas. Passover, freedom from slavery, right? Hanukkah, the ability to, and there's an article here, please come to the smorgasbord afterwards, becoming a Maccabee, right? What does it mean, right? In terms of just saying no, in terms of being bullied, or just saying no in terms of the real story of Hanukkah, which is not about oil. It's about the fight of different identities, Hellenism or old-time Judaism. And of course, as we look around the room today, I'm not sure who really won, right? But yes, the holiday cycle. All right, I will bow to the local resource because Cantor Allen is right on top of these kinds of things. But let me just frame it by saying that educating the community can't be in the old mold of just throwing out Jewish definitions that aren't going to make sense outside of our in-speak, right? So the trick to finding material, at least on the web, like at certain websites, especially the Jews by Choice websites, which have the right language, is one of finding the mix of particularism and universality that makes the holiday make sense, or the ritual make sense, and demystifies it from simply theology into practical mission or philosophy. Alan, let me just...
The easiest place to find resources is to speak with your synagogue's educational director. Well, I'm telling you where you can look. There's not one good national place. If you're part of the Reform movement, the URJ website has parent resources listed on it for every single holiday. That's an easy place to go. I know that we at Rodef post on our school website packets for parents for just what you're talking about. So when it comes up to Hanukkah, we'll put out a Hanukkah packet for parents to use as a resource, or for Passover, or for the High Holy Days. So we actually provide those materials.
And there is I did prepare a little websites for Judaic background information, so you can find all sorts of goods, just browse. But I will take the challenge as I guess a local resource. If you can't find it, you want it, I'm really willing to work within the partnership to create something that may be helpful that we could then post through the Federation, shalomdc.org, et cetera, and get it around. I agree, but let me caution, because this is always the case, especially in America, where it's advertising and consumerism that creates the language level, which is usually lower than it needs to be. We have, over the last 60 years in Jewish education, done too much to trivialize, make, simplistic. Pedagogy comes from the word, peds, which are kids. We've pediatricked Judaism. It is a sophisticated, important worldview religion that does go beyond food. Why? Because the food we love is actually symbols. So if we talk about the food, those are anchors, just like all of these things, these are anchors for something else. And always tie the symbolism to the food, which really helps. Your early childhood program here at Rodef Shalom does an amazing job with that approach, the project approach, where something is called a stimulation or provocation, and then kids have to create a hypothesis. You don't spoon feed it, you try to, which is really the word education, draw it out, create a hypothesis, then the learners of different groups own it, and you can take them further. Exactly, yeah. So another handout is about Hakarat HaTov, the recognition of good in one's life, Thanksgiving, and the holiday of Thanksgiving, including an activity that could be done around your table. And let me just hold with questions, because I have to finish up, and then you can ask all of us questions in a minute. That's the point. These reachable moments, teachable moments, making sure that you do have some of the details, and you have this is an amazing community with many resources, both cyber resources as well as warm, loving human beings who work with your kids and can work with your families. So make those attempts and think of the oneness. So for instance, I could sing to you from Sesame Street, some of these things are not like the others. What's not like the others here, just to stimulate? Can you see it? Yeah, okay. Well, then let me give it away, right? For instance, why would I bring this along with, I brought a mezuzah, I brought a Chanukiah. Ah, yes. Right? Again, there is nothing wrong in Jewish law about having your VW minibus, because I am a child of the 60s, to make it a discussion point, right, around your Hanukkah family. So why do I have the basketball? What does that have to do with Judaism? All right, so, exactly. So part of the juggling is, it is a part of somebody's skills, identities, and if somebody's doing well, as we used to say, God don't make mistakes. If you got it, flaunt it, do it, right? How do you align it to a set of structures, boundaries, the creation story, so that it's not in conflict, but enhances? One of the solutions we had, and we do this for Jewish Heritage Night, is a handout called How a Mensch Plays Sports. So the idea isn't just it's sports or going to the synagogue. That's what created the Civil War during the times of the Hasmoneans. That's really what happened in Hanukkah. Instead, it becomes a time to discuss, what do we get out of sports? How do we play sports Jewishly, meaning Menschlichkeit, the idea of a mensch, which is a person of integrity, right? You will train to win, but you're also going to be trained not just to score, but to make an assist. So there's some great language here, the difference between sportsmanship and gamesmanship. So, yes? Okay, so yeah, we can circulate these. So that's the bottom line. There's also something here about enriching your environment. What can you put up in terms of artwork, tzedakah boxes, multi-sensory things, the spice box. It's not just a stand up, sit down, say the blessing. Each one of these activities become enrichment, multi-sensory, and a cause for discussion. So that's bigadol in the large picture. We can ask questions later.